You're listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago. The Wake Up Show Chicago, previously recorded.
Welcome to the Wake Up Show Chicago.
Rise and shine. It's the Wake Up Show, where every sunrise is a call to action.
We set sail.
The State Black Chamber of Commerce. We are the champions of change, advocating for diversity.
On a summer night, Chicago skyline, stars in flight, black excellence on every side, and you were there riding with pride. You believed in the dream, you invested is the dream, you invested in the team. Now we're building a future.
Welcome to the all-new, or should I, look, I'm stuck in the weekday, the all-new afternoon show. No. Welcome to the Wake Up Show Chicago. I'm one of the hosts, Donna Ray, sponsored by the Wind Creek Casino, Southeast in Homewood. Also brought to you by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, where we focus on empowering black businesses. And who I am co-host to is in the studio, yes, live and in color. And of course, Lorenzo T. Hughes is here. But Doctor, the president of the Illinois Chicago, previously recorded.
Welcome to the Wake Up Show Chicago.
Rise and shine. It's the Wake Up Show, where every sunrise is a call to action. Powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, we are the champions of change, advocating for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the world of corporate and government contracting. It's not just a show, it's a movement. So get ready for another dynamic journey as we wake up the world to a new era of opportunities and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, President Larry Ives.
Welcome to the all-new, or should I, I'm stuck in the weekday, the all-new afternoon show. No. Welcome to the Wake Up Show Chicago. I'm one of the hosts, LaDonna Ray, sponsored by the Wind Creek Casino, Southland in Homewood. Also brought to you by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, where we focus on empowering black businesses. And who I am co-host to is in the studio, yes, live and in color. And of course, Lorenzo T. Hughes is here. But Doctor, the president of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and chairman of the board in Washington, D.C., Larry Ivory.
Hello, LaDonna Ray, and to our listener, Lorenzo, man, I am glad to be in the studio. You know, it's like watching the game from TV and then being at the game. I'm at the game today, so I'm here in the studio. I'm excited to be here because it's always such an important role that I think the chamber plays in terms of, you know, the things that we share with people. We're very intentional about getting information to our listening audience that we think will help make things better. And if ever there's a time for us to make things better, because it seems like we're headed in the wrong direction, the time is now. I think the power of coming together and uniting and really thinking and being strategic is going to be very important in the coming years, right now in the coming years. So I'm excited, LaDonna, to be here in the studio. And I know we got some heavy hitters coming on today, too. So I'm going to sit back, relax, and kind of enjoy the ride.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
You're listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago, previously recorded.
Hey, but let me say this real quick, that Dr. Sterling has been one of the great advocates on behalf of black businesses. And what I mean by that, he's created an opportunity that we can all sit at the table and benefit from. Not only benefit economically, but also to have, you know, what we consider to be better healthcare outcomes in the black community and minority community. Simcoe Solution is a solution that has economic merit, and it also grow and helps sustain our communities at the same time. And we're going to be pushing when we go down to Springfield. There's been money allocated for this particular issue, but the money has never got invested back into the program. So we're going to be fighting for that. So Dr. Sterling, give us a little bit of your background, your perspective, and tell us what you want us to know in terms of how important this is and the impact it has on our community.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's always great to see you again, be with you. Good morning, Senator. Look, here's the bottom line. We talk about business all the time on this show, but there are things called social determinants of health that preclude your ability to conduct in business if you're sick. You know, nobody's happiest day of their life when they was on a day in which they were sick. And the reality of the situation is that Black folks are the most adaptable people ever created on the face of the earth. Because as we sit here smiling and enjoying life, the reality of our existence is that your life expectancy is more determined by your zip code than it is most any other factor.
Correct.
In the United States, 9 out of the top 10 causes of death disproportionately affect Black people. Okay, I was on WGN this morning talking about how just to give you one example, for maternal mortality, deaths during pregnancy, Black women have a 80% higher rate than the general population. So this conversation at the beginning of the day is about improving the quality and the quantity of our lives. Now, the good news here is that there's a public health dictate, been well researched, that better healthcare outcomes for Blacks are improved when they are delivered by culturally sensitive and culturally specific healthcare providers. That means FUBU, in case that sounded too technical for you. And what we have done with the Simcoe solution, and we seem to finally getting some breakthrough on the ability to bring some of this $120 million that the General Assembly has already approved. We've already got the legislation passed, 2 consecutive years of $60 million each, en route to $300 million over 5 years. So the money's been approved by the General Assembly, but it's never been released by the Department of Health Care and Family Services. And we feel like we're going to be able to get that done. But the point in terms of how this all comes together from a business proposition is that we are committed to improving the lives of the citizens of the state. You know, I'm a business person, but I'm a physician first and a public health professional second. And we have got to stop the devastation that has been wrought upon our communities. And the way to do that is to empower the sum total of the Black business community in executing this project. We are going to be a model. You guys are going to be so proud, not just how we demonstrate that there is Black business excellence, but how that Black business excellence can be brought to bear on behalf of the citizens of the state and impacting health in communities. So that's what this is about. On the one hand, on one side of the coin, this is all about improving healthcare outcomes for the citizens of the state, wherever they may be, wherever we're allowed to serve. And on the other hand, we're going to do it in a way that demonstrates that, you know, we have become so accustomed, for example, to getting any type of business proposition from teams that are all white or no Black. But we're going to show you that teams that have a significant proportion of Black leadership and Black innovation can do just the same regardless of the communities that we're serving. We're going to get there, and we're going to demand better health. We're going to demand better participation because we can't afford to continue to allow these ravages to occur in our community.
Yes.
Absolutely right, Dr. Sterling. It's right on the money. And the impact that this will have in terms of, and really when you talk about $60 million, that's a very small portion of preventive health. And quickly, Dr. Sterling, tell us, how do we rank when it comes to healthcare outcomes around the world in comparison with the United States?
Well, in the United States ranks about 37th in the world. Illinois is a state that's somewhere between the high 20s and the high 30s, depending on the ranking that you see in terms of the production of healthcare outcomes, which is fascinating to me because Illinois is simply excellent in the amount of money that it is spending on healthcare. It is the largest part of the state's budget, approximating $30 billion a year. There's just tremendous money in the system. However, there is very little, relatively speaking, that's going toward health prevention and health promotion. So you can't wait until you get sick to try to deliver health. That's medical care. Healthcare is staying healthy. So, we have work to do, and we're just going to follow public health best practices to target some of that largesse of money that the state is spending in ways that produce better returns on investment and better healthcare outcomes.
You're listening to The Wake Up Show Chicago, previously recorded.
Tell everyone what you had to do for a member that was one of those subcontractors.
Well, I'll be real quick because we're going to pivot to the Department of Correction because
Yes.
we definitely want to have that conversation. What we had to do is that when we find our contractors are being not handled appropriately, or after we've done our homework, there's always give and takes on both sides of an issue. But when the issue really begins to be a problem where it's a small issue, when you got a company that may be billions of dollars, a multi-million dollar, billion dollar perhaps company, and that company isn't, paying that individual something, a small amount of money isn't going to impact their lives, but it can impact that contractor's life. And sometimes they make you jump through so many hoops that it becomes, it just makes your life hell when when it's so easy for them to make a simple decision. So what the chamber did is to simply get involved, make sure that the contractors know that we will be addressing this issue and that we expect them to take care of this payment, or the chamber will do what it does best, and that is to elevate this to a whole different level. So we try to make sure that people understand we're not here to play. We're an honest business organization. We don't always do everything just right. And we're going to be the first group that if we do something that is slightly wrong, you call us, tell us, we'll come back on the air and apologize for it. But we're there to protect Black contractors, LaDonna. So let's hear from Gabriel, and then let's get right into the Illinois Department of Commerce.
All right, ladies.
Department of Corrections. I'm sorry.
Right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have on the live line, I should say, we have a guest who is actually very well versed when it comes to communications and such. Gabriel Mitchell, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How's the Illinois Black Chamber doing this time Saturday morning in Chicago?
Good morning. Good morning.
Well,
Hey, just
much
fine,
better.
Gabriel. Hey, man, we're
That's
so
great.
happy to have you on the call because you bring a set of skills that will help us do our job even better.
Well, Dr. Ivory, I'm very excited about it. I've been in the direct marketing field for quite some time. And really, direct marketing involves communicating messages straight to your target audience without, people in the middle. You know what I mean? And so we typically do this through mail, direct mail, email, SMS, or digital ads. However, like when a community or organization such as the Black Chamber uses it, our goals really shift a lot. It shifts from just selling products to amplifying the concerns, priorities, or demands, of a community such as the Black African American community to policymakers. And I recently was privileged to become a part of the Illinois Black Chamber political PAC. And we really, really, really need to come together and support politicians that support our point of view. Every contract, every major contract, at least that I've known, Larry, and maybe you can verify this in Chicago, has some policymaker involved with it. So we need to, get these policymakers to pay attention. And when we have concerns about not getting paid or not getting contracts, we can, inflict some pressure to make those things happen. And so how do we do that? We've got access to voter rolls, the Illinois Black Political PAC, census data, issue-specific petition signatories. We have access to that information, political affiliation, demographics, behavioral data. And politicians are more likely to pay attention when a message is precise. You know what I mean? If we say 75% of voters support African-American businesses in their communities, that's powerful to them because we've become specific and we're putting the numbers up. So, I know you've got other things to talk about, but I'm so happy that the Black Chamber now, we have this force to use to contact people directly and to get our concerns known.
All right. Well,
Hey, Gabriel, thanks a lot. You elevate and help us to leverage our message and the results that we're trying to get, because the reason that we're here, that we're trying to strengthen Black businesses. And if we have a system that allows us to communicate and get our issues out there, it helps us to be more effective at bringing about change. So again, thank you for your leadership on the political PAC and also as a member of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce.
It's so appreciated to be a part of the organization, Dr. Ivory. Thank you.
All right, Larry, you were talking about this Illinois Department of Corrections. So let's let our listeners know what that's about.
Well, every year we go down and have lobby day. We take a look at all the agencies, whether it be the Internal Revenue, whether it be the Capital Development Board, whether it be, the DCEO for Economic Development for the state of Illinois, and all the agencies. One of the agencies that we got to say that we're absolutely disappointed in, and that is the Illinois Department of Corrections. Now, the reason that we are is based upon data. I think, LaDonna, you've done some homework, you and Lorenzo. Give us some data so they help our audience to understand why we're focusing on the Illinois Department of Corrections, who has close to a $2 billion budget that they spend. And we're going to get to the numbers. The numbers tell us a lot. And we have African-American leadership, Latoya Hughes, who is the director, and a special focus on Janetta Wilson, who is the APO, which is the one who handles the procurement. And she ought to be a subject of everybody's conversation across the state because she has a lot of impact upon what happens. So, LaDonna, you guys got any numbers that you got in front of you?
Well, Larry, let me go ahead and start off by saying this. Like, I think we both will all agree that black people make up just 14% of the state's population. But get this, black people also make up over 54% of the prison population.
You're listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago.
I'm going to say that again. Black people make up 54% of the prison population. And while we're overrepresented behind bars, we're completely underrepresented in state contracts, especially with the Illinois Department of Corrections. And it's been obviously, it's obviously that they failed and continue to fail at correcting that situation and those who are incarcerated.
Yeah, so now we have black contractors that are nowhere to be found in the award listing, but we're always in those rosters. In addition to that, Larry, we've got 15,000, over almost 16,000 inmates out of 30,000 in Illinois. So can you kind of spearhead how we are not utilizing or being utilized properly? This is kind of upside down, as they would call it. And you and I, we spoke about the chief procurement officer, Jeanette Wilson. How are the two relevant?
Yeah, well, they're relevant in this regard. Let me also give you one other statistic. Of that $2 billion budget, the amount of business that's gone to African Americans is 1.8 million, a little bit over 1.8 million. That's less than 0.85%. Hear what I'm saying? That's less than 0.85% of their budget. That is deplorable, in my opinion. And everyone can make an excuse, so they can say, well, we can't get African Americans a bid, and, we're trying to do everything we can. It's time out for excuses. People who are not performing, I give this example all the time, LaDonna and Lorenzo, and to our listening audience. If you are a recruiter for a major university or college, and you never go out and recruit anyone, but you're still getting paid, someone who's in charge of hiring you is going to get a phone call from the president and saying that we are getting no recruits. We're paying this guy a bunch of money, but we're not getting any results. He needs to be fired. Let's replace him and find someone else. It's like having a basketball player who you paid a bunch of money, but he don't score no points. He can't even make a layup. When we have people in leadership like the APO who's not getting results, they ought to be considered for firing and find someone else that can do it. And there's no longer excuses about, well, Larry, we keep trying to find people. We can't get your people to bid. They won't get registered. All the other excuses. But the only time you hear that is when we come down to Springfield and have a conversation with you. My question is that you should be proactive. You should be talking to us all the time in reference to how do we make this better? Here's more opportunities. And I've seen on a consistent pattern where even when we have been the best, that they find an excuse not to do business with us. That's not acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable to anyone, but we've allowed it to happen because no one's speaking up. Well, the chamber job is to speak up when there's disparity and there's underrepresentation. We're overrepresented in the prison population. And it really makes us, if you take a look at the data, what you would have to believe that if black people are 4 to 5 times more violent and more criminal than whites or anybody else. Now, how many of you believe that?
Well, that's what's promoted to us. That's what's marketed to us and presented to us. And just in going to lobby day with you, Larry, this rings true in multiple agencies. It seems like, I know we're talking about Illinois Department of Corrections, but they all seem to have the same message mapping where they talk about how black contractors are not participating, are not doing this or not doing that. And what happens in the room when they say that, Larry? Everyone goes, "Oh, okay." No, not okay.
Yeah. They have a tactic of how to neutralize black people. It's like what they used to say, how I used to feel when whites would say, "Well, your people captured your own people,"
and you go,
it would make you feel like really bad.
Yeah,
and it shifts the conversation away from what they're supposed to do to your response. It puts a monkey on your back. But guess what? It's their responsibility to make sure that they're meeting the goals and objectives and making sure that there's diversity. Because if you talk about retention and not coming back to the system is what we say we want to do. But if we're not participating economically in contracts and opportunity, we're more likely to hire our own people than someone else. So if more black people are getting contact, whether it be food, whether it be healthcare, we had a serious problem on the healthcare side. Well, we had a company, Simcoe Solution, who was the best. They had the same firm that's been there for forever, and they were not happy, but they competed for the business, and they found a scoring piece that didn't give them the score they needed in order for them to win the contract. We took a look at the disparity of score because one scorer gave a person may get the maximum point, and then one scorer gave someone 0 point in the same category. We won the protest, but we didn't get the contract. The same firm who's out of town, who's out of the state of Illinois, is still doing the same thing, and they're not overly happy with the service. But when an African American gets an opportunity, they simply will not. We have to force and tell our legislators that this is not acceptable. And sometimes they don't even know all the data, all the information. So it's important from this audience side to understand the data. The data is this. When you run into a legislator, ask them, did you know that we represent 54 to 55% of the prison population? And do you also know that we only get 0.85%, not even 1%, 0.85% of the budget of spend based upon the amount of the amount of our budget? That's an insult, and we ought to have a problem with that, and they ought to look into that. I know we got some good leaders. Julia Stratton is running for Durban C. They got other people. We ought to be asking people, why is this the case, and what can we do in order for them to work with the chamber so that we can improve those numbers? We're not here to pick a fight. We're here to make things better. And if we don't stand up and become a voice for the voiceless and and continue to be an advocate for black businesses, then we would have failed our responsibility. And we're not going to do that, quite frankly. So
now,
we're going
Larry,
to be clear about that.
Earlier you mentioned the chief procurement officer, and I think I have a name correction here, but I do have a question for you. Her name is Jacinta Wilson. Okay. Jacinta Wilson, have you talked to her? What does she say about this? Have you talked to her about these inequities, about how black contractors are not getting real quick, because it's 9:46. What has her response been?
Well, the response has always been, Larry, we care about it, and we want to see this better. If they could just do this, this, and this. It's always the same old conversation. And if you've been around long enough, like I've been around, you know the conversation that people have of how to put the responsibility back on you. But like I say, if you're a recruiter, your job is to recruit. if she's the APO and you have a sister who's the director, then they ought to be sitting down with us on an ongoing basis saying, guys, what do we need to do? We ought not to have to bring the issue to them. They ought to be reaching out to us and other organizations like us to say, guys, we're struggling here and we need your help. What can we do? Here's the point we're missing. And we're always willing to sit down in order to make it better. But we have to challenge status quo. And if we don't say nothing, nothing's going to change. No one's going to get uncomfortable. No one's going to do anything different. We'll be 10 years from now having the same conversation. Our incarceration number will be 4 times that. We will still be getting little or no business. And that's not acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable to all people in the state of Illinois. We have a great state who's standing up for the right things. We're proud of what we're doing in terms of what's happening on D.C. But at the same time, we're not oblivious to the fact that we got some things here we got to fix, too, at the same time, LaDonna.
Let's get it done.
Yes.
Let's get it done.
Yes,
We've got a couple of callers, and, Gabriel is still with us. I want to thank him for just being a part of this conversation. Larry, do you want me to get to the callers?
Yes, get to the callers, LaDonna.
All right, let's get Brenda. Good morning, Brenda. Good morning.
Good morning.
Real quick, how are you? Go ahead and give us your point.
Fine. I was just listening to your conversation, and I just wish you were around, but I hadn't heard of you. I had a bus company, and we had been working with the city of Chicago public schools for about 10 years. And when one of the bids came up, I was not a prime, but,
A subcontractor?
I was a subcontractor with Atlantic Express. And, of course, they expect for us to have everything that the main contractor had. But Atlantic Express dipped us out of about $30,000. We never got it. I went to the transportation with CPS, spoke to them. They didn't try to help us. We went to New York. It was me and one other bus contractor. We went to New York because they, again, did a I wish you all forgive me. It's been a while. Anyway, I ended up not getting the money.
Mm-hmm. The money you deserve.
Yeah.
That really
we worked for.
And
yes.
And you didn't have someone out there that could weigh in to make sure that you got paid. Well, that's exactly what the chamber is all about. And again, I wish we had known you. We would have gladly reached out, and we protect our members. If you're a member of our organization, we will work hard to make sure you get treated fairly. And we also have a political PAC. We have strong 15 black media outlets from TV, radio, newspaper, and digital at the same time. So we can make sure that the voices, when people get treated badly, that there is a voice, that you're not voiceless, and you don't have to suffer in silence. Hey, thanks a lot. If you want to give LaDonna, leave your number. Yes. I surely would love to follow up with you and see if there's anything that we can do in the near future for you.
All right, let's get to Art. Hi, Art. Good morning.
Morning. How are you? Good morning, young lady. How are you, and to your guest or your co-host? I am a contractor. I've been doing home remodeling rehab I'm 56 for over 35 years. So this is why I have a problem with us. Who's stopping black contractors, black people, to say, hey, we're going to buy 100 homes, and we're going to buy these 100 homes, and we are going to get young youth, black men, and set up in a big building a training center to train them how to do home remodeling, rehab, plumbing, electrical, painting, decorating, landscaping. In these 100 homes, you're going to start your own. In this area, you're going to have your own union where they can pay into their own dues to protect themselves. Who is stopping us from doing that and creating our own economic engine where we don't have to go through hoops and jumps and do all these things. And if I was a white person, the people I will hire will be white people because that's my brethren, that's my family. These are the people I socialize with. This is what I would do. So my point of saying this is, who is stopping black people from buying property that we can buy and rehab and train our own people? I don't understand that. It just
Art, let me respond to that.
Yes, sir.
No one's stopping us. It ought to be something that should be a priority for us. But let's not dismiss the fact that when we talk about, buildings, whether it be college, universities, public facilities, those are taxpayers' dollars. You are already contributing to that. And I'm saying that if we're contributing to it, then we have a right to participate where our dollars create the opportunity. So I agree with you there, but it don't dismiss the fact that we still got to hold people accountable for our investment back into the system where we're supposed to get a return on investment.
Let me respond to that very quickly. If we were strong family, then we could make them bow down because we have a whole unit of black men, women, and families backing us. See, the Spanish people are successful because they have a whole community backing it, so you can't push them out. That's why they took over Taco Bell, Dunkin' Donuts, and all of these McDonald's, because they have a strong family center, so when they move in, they take over.
All right,
so
we're going to have to leave it right there. All right, we're going to have to leave it
Yes,
right
sir.
there.
Yes, ma'am.
But I believe we can. I believe that I am optimistic that black folks will get better at what we're doing, and that's what this is all about. Go ahead, LaDonna.
Yeah, we got one more caller. Hey, good morning, Ben.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Brother Larry, LaDanya, and Mr. Hughes this morning?
Wait, did you say LaDanya?
Ben.
You said LaDanya?
I said LaDonna.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Ben.
Hi, good morning, everyone. One of the things I want to say, and I've just been listening to the conversation this morning, I think we as black people, and looking at the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce, we have to get behind the chamber itself, okay? Because it's like that movie, The Soul Food. When your hands are spread it out, you go in all kind of ways. But if you got that fist balled it up, you can do a powerful punch. The Black Chamber itself and our black people need to get behind the chamber because that organization has helped my firm out tremendously. Okay, I would just say we just got a state contract, the first state contract we've had in about 2 years, but they still behind.
I'm gonna say that again. Black people make up.
Larry the young man just talked about hiring our own. 95% of my firm is African American, and we just hired a person to work in our Peoria office. That's from Peoria, a young man that graduated from U of I. So we just have to come together as a people. Everybody want to be a chief, but we can't have a million chiefs. We need to have just one chief, and everybody else just need to be an Indian and then just follow that chief.
Yes,
and that's the only way I think we're going to move forward in this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like that. All right, we'll leave it there, Ben. Thanks.
Your leadership in business.
You're listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago, previously recorded.
And we're able to negotiate an opportunity like we did with the lottery. Like we've done in countless with Wind Creek.
What did you do with the lottery? That's big.
Well, with the lottery, we sat down with the lottery ahead of time before they won their contract, and we worked with the team to make sure that black media was at the table. And I think they've been getting business from the lottery for at least seven years, where we went in and negotiated, make sure that black media was at the table. And that was a part of the commitment they made to us in order for us to be an advocate for them. Not only did they help black media, but the lottery really, Alwyn's now is what it's called, they also hired a lot of African Americans that were doing business at the same time. So that's the beauty of the chamber. That's what the chamber brings to the table that few other organizations can. We're going to be doing the same thing with a lot of different other industries. So it's going to be exciting. And we're going to strengthen black media because we know if we strengthen black media, we're strengthening black business and we're strengthening black people, LaDonna.
I love it. It's funny how when I post on my social media that I have a show coming up or whatever the case may be on WVON, it's very different than when I've made my appearances at other stations. They weren't the same. Everyone jumps up and down and gets excited when it's not us. But when it's us, people, you hear crickets. And I want that to change. We're going to change that, Larry, and I'm so happy that we're on that forefront. We do have a guest that is going to bring us the updates in Washington, D.C. And before we want to make sure that everyone is peaked and listening and has their pen and paper ready to take down notes, because this administration is well, I would say it's nothing short of an illusion, but I think Nigel will give us an update and tell us what's really going on. Ladies and gentlemen, do you mind if I bring him on now?
And let me say one thing about Nigel real quick. You know, we are so honored, Nigel, to have your team, Phoenix Strategy, as a part of our daily, weekly conversation, because you give us a real sense of what's happening on Capitol Hill. And I want to give a shout out to you and to your team for just being there and being available to share with our listening audience about what's happening on Washington, D.C. that impacts all of us. And quite frankly, I don't think I've ever been more concerned about where we're at than this time in history. I mean, I've never felt like I'm trying to just get it out of my head. But if I don't think about it and listen to what's going on, then I'm afraid I'm going to be collateral damage. So, Nigel, man, I just want to say that to you, brother. Nothing but love and great respect for what you do, and glad to have you on the show, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. When the Honorable Larry Ivory calls, we listen, we answer. So thank you very much for that. And it is absolutely an honor for myself, just directly, and as well for my team, to be your eyes and ears in Washington, D.C. And thank you for the opportunity to give the platform to be able to share with the community. And LaDonna Ray, it is a pleasure as always. I was listening to what your commentary was right before I got on. What you're talking about with regards to media and access directly to the community. In Washington, we have the old adage, all politics is local. Well, we have learned the good way and the bad way that communication and reaching the community and reaching people where they are is essential. And by being creative and being thoughtful about how we approach getting our messages to the community is absolutely essential. So please lean into this local radio, lean into these local markets, lean into modernize a podcast, blogs, whatever the modern way is that people are getting access to their news. We have to make sure we are leaning into that, and we are leveraging Black radio stations like yours and the work that you guys are doing in the community, because this is the opportunity to speak directly to our community and get them engaged on the issues that are directly affecting them. So thank you very much for your work and what you are doing to make sure we can amplify and educate our folks on what's really happening.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Hey, Nigel, I was sitting here, I think I said, our agenda is just about set, but we're going to have to find a way, Nigel, either to fly you in or to have you on big screen to give us the Washington perspective when we at the conference on August the 5th, 6th, and 7th. We got to find a way of doing that, LaDonna. Yeah. I think it's important to have you on, Nigel, or your team on to talk about, what's going on at this time, because I know things will be changing again. So I'm going to sit back, relax, and you tell us what's going on, man. And I'm just going to enjoy the ride here. I'm going to tune out. I'm not going to tune out. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you do your thing, man.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as you know, things are changing in Washington almost by the hour. It's not even a weekly or daily thing anymore. And by the way, my team always stands ready and available to attend the Taste of Chicago. So just in case.
You got it, man. We can arrange that. We can arrange that, man.
I don't want to put that plug in there. Just let you know. Okay, so let's get to the larger issues, and then let's get a little bit more granular about the things that are really affecting us. So right now, on Saturday, the Senate is working and meeting. They were working late into the night last night and the night before and so forth, trying to work on this big, beautiful bill, the budget reconciliation bill. They got a bit of a hiccup when the Senate parliamentarian determines the rules that governs legislation that comes to the floor, threw a bit of a monkey wrench in their strategy by telling them that there were major provisions with regards to policy and spending that they could not do because it did not meet the rules of the Senate. So they had to take that out. What does that mean? Is that going to stop the bill? Probably not. They're going to find a way to pass this bill and change whatever they need to change in order to do it. Because this is the primary objective of this administration. This is the number one goal. Very little is going to happen in Congress legislatively after this bill for 2025, and probably less is going to even happen for 2026 before the election. So this is the flag. This is the number one priority for this administration, to pass this massive tax cut bill. I think it's now well over $4 trillion worth of tax cuts that they're expecting to be accommodated by this budget reconciliation package. Okay, everyone loves tax cuts. No one wants to pay taxes. That sounds great until you deal with the program. So let's talk about what this is going to impact the communities. When you start talking about making cuts to government spending, yes, there is around $750 billion in government contracts that are awarded, competitive contracts. A little bit over $1 trillion of what we call annual appropriations. That's what, lobbyists like myself and others run around trying to figure out who's going to spend money where through federal agencies to keep government running and to run programs. That's a tiny, tiny, minuscule amount of what the government spends every year. Where does the government really spend its money? Really spending the money in what we call mandatory spending. Defense, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and paying down the interest on the national debt. Now, the administration's already made it clear they're going to increase defense spending. So that's off the table. The rules governing Social Security has made that hands off, so they can't cut Social Security. They will try in the future, but not right now. You cannot touch paying down the interest on the national debt. So there's nowhere to cut there. So let's look at Medicare and Medicaid. We even have conservative Republican senators and House members coming to the realization that with the cuts that were programmed, that were proposed in the previous House-passed budget, their constituents were going to lose significant coverage, Medicaid coverage. So this is the poorest of the poor, folks who need health care coverage through the Medicaid program. Let's keep in mind, yes, in a lot of states we have the Affordable Care Act, whatever we call it. Some states call it Obamacare. Some states call it, Kentucky Connect, because we don't want to call it Obamacare. But if you could afford to go onto the exchange without the supplement from the federal government, you wouldn't need to be on Medicaid. If you could afford private insurance, you wouldn't be on Medicaid. Okay? So the Medicaid is only for your poorest constituents, and now folks are realizing the impact that's going to have on their community. Right? What is this bill going to do in order to pay for these tax cuts? Now that the parliamentarian has made their change, what they're going to have to do is shift and try to figure out where they're going to get these cost savings from. And they're not going to be able to do it through the formula through Medicaid. So what can they now go to? They have to go back to a program that is not as easily defended and not as popular, which is SNAP. That's food assistance, folks. That's food assistance for working families that already have and poor families. That's where these cuts are going to come from. Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP. We've seen significant cuts from federal agencies. We've seen significant cuts in other places, but that's not where the big dollars are. The big dollars are in mandatory spending. Now, what does this mean for your listeners? We already have a $35 trillion national debt. So when we talked about paying on the interest of the national debt, we owe $35 trillion. This bill is going to add another $3.7 trillion. That's Congressional Budget Office estimates. That's not Nigel. That's not Phoenix Strategies. $3.7 trillion to that debt. And now that's going to increase the amount we have to pay every year on the interest of that debt. Those are conservative estimates. With your cuts and with the cuts to programs, with the cuts to SNAP, with the cuts to Medicaid, with the cuts to the federal government, it's still going to add $3.7 trillion to the national debt. That is your kids taking on a credit card debt to pay for things that our parents and we are living off of. We are giving that debt to our children. What does that mean? It means everything is going to be more expensive for them.
Nigel, have those cuts already began to take place?
The cuts to the federal agencies have already begun. Not only have we seen significant reduction in staffing, we've seen RIFs, we've seen mandatory cuts to workforce in federal agencies, massive cuts in certain agencies. We've also seen immediate cuts to government contractors who've been performing work at federal agencies, and they've seen their contracts cut. We've seen even large global corporations, massive companies, have to come back and renegotiate existing contracts that they have been performing for years. All right, so the cuts have already begun in certain places.
Nigel, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to cut you off, but where are the fiscal conservatives on the Republican Party? Because this is their platform, that reducing the debt was what they ran on. So how do they justify increasing the deficit? I mean, I'm a little puzzled at that.
So this is a long-standing theory that tax cuts theoretically trigger economic growth.
Okay.
So by cutting taxes for the wealthy and the wealthiest of the wealthy, that will then stimulate capital investment, and that will then drive economic growth. The economic growth will then bring in more income, which then can be used to reduce the debt. Now, has that worked? Never. But that's the theory that we continue to drive since the Reagan administration. And let's remember, the last time we had a balanced budget and we were paying down the national debt in a real way, it was when Republican Congress worked with a Democratic administration in Bill Clinton and came together with a balanced budget, and they were able to start paying down the debt.
Now, here's the other thing I want to point out to our listening audience is that a lot of time when we think about the budget and what's going on in America, it can seem very complicated, but it really isn't very complicated. Because if you take a look at your own personal finances, if you got more debt, more credit card debt than you can handle, then that means that you got to make more income and you got to go out and get another job. So a lot of times that when we take a look at where America's at, we just simply need to take a look at our own personal situation and apply that. And the government is the U.S. government is an individual, quite frankly. And the same thing that we experience, if we spend too much and we got too much debt, then we can go bankrupt. We have to file Chapter 11 or Chapter 13 or whatever the case may be. It's not a lot of difference in terms of that. Am I correct in that, in terms of it may be more complicated in terms of all the nuances, but fundamentally you're talking about, what you take in and what you spend out, and how debt impacts it, and how these things basically can cripple you financially that doesn't allow you to grow. When we talk about, the trade deficit and things like that, I try to make sure that people understand, even brothers on the street, I said, you've been playing this game for a long time. It's not overly complicated, but it is a different way of thinking from my perspective.
And once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors from the VIP cruise last week. We're talking about Wind Creek Casino Southland, Constellation, ComEd, SLG Innovation, IDG Architects, United Airlines, WVON 1690 AM, Vaughn TV, Supreme Solutions, Simcoe Solutions, Copan Vodka, Farmer Media, and Ray Consulting. Thank you so much for believing in us and our mission. See you guys at the business conference, September 9th through the 11th. Register now at ILBCC.org. You're listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago, previously recorded.
The previous years, where individuals have sat with corporations like the Illinois State University, Nicor Gas, ComEd, Alwyn. They've sat with these people. I know there's more, right?
Yeah.
But I don't.
Tons
I mean, imagine sitting across from them with your business, and I'm going to say this, with your itty bitty business. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. They are interested in getting their newest vendors put onto the roster, but you have to be there. You have to be there.
Absolutely. And really, as a business person, when you got so much going on and you got so many things that you're doing, it's so important for us to take advantage of everything we have. But now you said you got a caller.
We got a caller. We got to make it quick. Hey, David, good morning. What you got? You got like 20 seconds.
I just want to get the name of the gentleman, Nigel.
Nigel Stevens with a PH.
PH is what is PH for?
STEPHENS.
Phoenix.
STHEV.
With Phoenix Strategies, yes.
Phoenix Strategies out of Maryland.
Yes.
Is that in Maryland? Yes, in Maryland.
Yeah, he's a lobbyist in D.C.
I'm always telling him. I'm always thinking he's in D.C. Thank you. You got the information, right?
Yeah, I'm just writing it down. You said his last name is Stevens.
Right,
That's
Stevens.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
And Nigel, Nigel.
That's right. Good job. All right. So go back to the conference. People, you need to register. ILBCC.org is so important to go to. You'll see the conference on the calendar and get registered. It is a 3-day conference at Wind Creek Casino, one of our biggest sponsors.
Chicago.
Right there in Homewood. It's Chicago to you because you live in Peoria.
Right.
But it's in the south subs for us, you know what I mean? Right. It's still right off the expressway. I've passed there, and I've enjoyed a lot of different events that we've had there as well. So just make sure you go to ILBCC.org for the conference, which is August 5th through the 7th. And you can call our phone number
at 309-740-4430.
All right. But keep... we have 2 minutes left.
Well, let me say this, is that the conference is really just about us coming together with good energy, having a great time, and looking for opportunities. I mean, that's what it's all about. And we know we had the mayor of Waukegan. We're going to be inviting a bunch of other mayors, other key people. It's really a great place to be, to just really connect with people, look for your opportunity, look for your shot, look to take your shot.
You said Nigel's going to be there. Well, you said you're going to figure it out.
Figure it out.
Okay.
Make sure that Nigel gets there. But when you see our agenda, when you go to our website on Monday, you'll see our agenda, and you'll see the incredible amount of time and energy we put into this by having CEOs of major companies and corporations that'll be speaking on the panel. You'll have people from the CTA, Department of Transportation, all kinds of organizations.
All right. Well, we have 1 minute left to tell everybody to go to ILBCC.org. If you miss the cruise, it's like one of those FOMOs. I learned what FOMO is, fear of missing out. Right. You don't want to miss this because everything in Washington is going to happen, but you have to destiny. Even if you don't own a business and you're thinking of owning one and you lost your job, come out and network with people that are looking for you. Okay? That's ILBCC.org. You've been listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago right here on WVON 1690, where black media is so important. I'm going to add that to our closing, Larry. I'm LaDonna Ray with Ray Consulting, but make sure you go to our website more than anything, ILBCC.org, and we'll be back next Saturday right here on the Wake Up Show Chicago.
LaDonna Ray.
Yes, sir.
Can I just say, that's LaDonna Ray, Larry Ivory, and Lorenzo. You got to say your name, man.
Lorenzo T. Hughes.
Signing off.
Signing off.
That's right. All right. Bye-bye for now. We'll see you Monday. I'll see you Monday. That's what I mean.
Get ready to wake up to the pulse of progress. us as we amplify voices, break barriers, and illuminate the path towards a more inclusive tomorrow. Follow us across the socials at The Wake Up Show Chicago. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. It's The Wake Up Show every Saturday morning at 9, where change begins with every sunrise.
Welcome to The Wake Up Show Chicago.
That's the end?
We set sail on a summer night, Chicago skyline, stars in flight, black excellence on every side, and you were there riding with pride. You believed in the dream, you invested is the dream, you invested in the team. Now we're building a future on purpose and power, your thing. I'll thank you for sailing with us, and lifting us up, wind in our sails, your name on our hearts. Lend me your slugs, for you're leading the ways from nights to our sponsors. You didn't straight checks. You showed up. You stood with us. You believed. Black business power.